In this video, I'm going to share a set of circumstances which led me down the path of thinking it may be time to change my Model Y performance. Let's get cracking. It all started with a kiss. Now, I'm waiting at a roundabout. It's a tricky roundabout. It's a sort of roundabout which is hard to get onto, and the traffic, if they're committed enough, can reach up to 30 miles an hour going around that roundabout. You know where this is going. So I start to pull forward, I decide it's not safe to go, and I stop. The driver behind me decides that I've gone, and then this happened. And when I looked in my mirror, this guy was livid for some reason. However, when we pulled over off the roundabout, he'd calmed down quite a bit. So we're talking, and he said to me a few things that alarmed me. One was, well, you've not damaged my car too badly, so shall we just leave it? And the other one was, you can write your number down and your email address. However, my eyesight's so bad, I'm probably not going to be able to read it. And there's a few other alarming things that he mentioned, which made me think that I wasn't prepared to really just kind of sort this out with the guy. It was going to have to be an insurance claim. There wasn't really any dispute as to who was at fault, especially with the Tesla camera footage as well. And I was pleased to find out the guy was insured. There wasn't that much damage to my car. So have a look at this and let me know in the comments how much you think the repair would be, and whether you think it would need to go to a body shop, or whether you think this is kind of one of those like kind of smart repairs that could have probably been done on the drive. And that brings me on to repairing Teslas, because in the UK at least, it still seems to be a little bit of a big deal. When I first got my Model S in 2019, there was just the S and the X in the UK. So they were rare cars, rare enough that if you saw another Tesla, you would give them the Tesla wave. That's long gone now. But the Model 3 and the Y, especially the Y, the most popular selling car in the world for periods of time, it's not a rare car. My local body shop 15 miles away, they refused to repair the car when they found out it was a Tesla. And my insurance company said it needs to go to a Tesla approved body shop. And the nearest one to me is 86 miles away. So they sent a flatbed to my house. And how much does it cost? If you know, let me know in the comments. To pick up a Tesla on a flatbed and drive it 86 miles. And I just knew, having my car on the flatbed, there'd be a load of middle-aged men it went past who would be saying, well, he's either run out of charge or his battery's gone after 500 miles and he needs to spend £20,000 on a new one. Next problem I had was electric courtesy cars. Now, because it wasn't my fault and I've got insurance which enables me to have a courtesy car, the claims handling company phoned me and said you can have your pick of petrol or diesel cars within the same sort of bracket as your car. And I said, I don't want a petrol or diesel car. I'm very used to getting up in the morning and my car is full, and at the risk of sounding quite entitled, taking a car to a petrol station would be slightly inconvenient for me. A few days later, they managed to get me a Polestar 2. I mean, it was pretty poor condition. It was stains in and out. It was dirty. There was drinks cans under the seats and coffee cups. And I had to air it smelled so bad, this car. And I'm not exaggerating. I had to air the car for 2 hours after the delivery driver dropped it off before I could actually get in it. Think the worst smelling holiday taxi times 10. But thankfully, the rental company were very apologetic. It was a genuine error with the person they'd sent to bring me the car. And they took it away, got it validated, and it came back looking like this. And it was driving this Polestar 2 for a few weeks, and I say weeks for that small dent, that made me question my Tesla Model Y performance. The Polestar build quality, the Polestar 2 build quality, I actually thought was excellent. I thought it handled really well. I mean, really impressive handling. And I also like the suspension setup, and I like the way I was sitting in the car as well. I felt like a daytime TV version of Blade, sponsored by Gaviscon. And to give you a little bit of history, which led me from a Model S to a Model 3 to a Model Y performance. The Model S I really liked. The build quality was poor and it was far too big for UK roads, especially car parks. The Model 3 was perfect. I really liked the long range Model 3. However, our family was growing up really quick. The kids are taller than us, and we do a few road trips where we just needed a little bit more luggage space as well. Our other car was an e-Golf at the time, so that couldn't work as our family vehicle. And that led me to get a Model Y. I'm a very slow driver, so obviously I bought the performance one. But it's a brilliant family car. It is a superb family vehicle. So much so that my wife says she loved having a vehicle of that size, but doesn't particularly like Teslas, so went out and bought a Q4 e-tron. So we're now one family with two family cars. With this Polestar 2, it felt very much like a Nordic muscle car. The charge port was in the same place as it is on a Tesla, which meant that I could use the Tesla network, the parts that were open, without annoying other drivers. If you didn't know, if we took our e-tron, for instance, to many of the open superchargers, I would have to take up 2 spaces to use one charge port because the charge port is on the other side. And Tesla superchargers, especially the versions 2 and 3, have short charging cables. So what did I do? Well, I got in that Polestar and I drove it with gusto to my nearest Tesla dealership. And I test drove the new Model 3. Codename Highland, but not codenamed Highland as it turns out. And I was really impressed. They had 2 versions. They had the performance one, which I thought I would like the most, and they also had the rear-wheel drive one. The performance one is, well, overall, they have much better suspension than the previous Model 3. They have much better build quality inside, and they are just a noticeably better place to be. They're also quieter as well. The performance, the performance is just crackers. 0 to 60 in sub 3 seconds. It's very, very fast. Performance seats are also excellent. However, I did find the suspension a little bit harder than I would like. And as I've mentioned, I'm not a particularly fast driver anyway. And then I drove the rear-wheel drive one. This has a 0 to 60 of 5.8 seconds, so considerably slower and slower than the car I've currently got. However, it only has one motor. It doesn't have a motor at the front. And this made the steering really quite playful. And as a result, out of all the Teslas I've driven, so probably a dozen Tesla Model S's from single motor versions up to the performance versions of the Model S, also a couple of Model Ys and of course a Model 3. This was by far the most fun I've had in a Tesla. And I think a lot of the reason for that was what it lacks in that 0 to 60, when you're in that 20 to 50 mile an hour zone, it doesn't really feel that much difference to the long range version. And because it hasn't got that unlimited effortless power, I actually found myself working it a bit more, which added to the engagement of the drive. And I think that's part of the reason which makes the rear-wheel drive version of the Tesla Model 3 just so good. It's playful, it's got more than enough performance, it goes a lot further than it used to. It's just a very good package at that price point for what you're getting in a car. I just want to interrupt this video to say, if you're thinking about buying a Tesla, I will put a link in the description and also the pinned comment. That will give you, at time of filming, $1,000 US off a Tesla if you're in the US, £1,000 off a Tesla if you're in the UK. If you're in Europe, I mean, I miss you. And using that link also helps support the channel, so that's really appreciated. What did I do next? Well, I put a deposit down. And I'm pleased to say, and I got right to the end of the buying process, the buying process is probably 100 times better than it was in 2019, and probably 10 times better than when I bought my Model Y Performance back in 2023. And then my Model Y came back. The damage was repaired. It handles pretty well for a car on those big 21-inch wheels that's kind of a mid-size SUV, so isn't really designed to handle that well anyway. And it did put a smile on my face. And then the sun came out and it looked like this. I then had to put something in the boot and it fitted perfectly with that sort of generous hatchback. And I think with my car being away, I'd got myself into a little bit of a mental muddle and decided that I wanted to change it. I think the configuration of my Model Y Performance looks the best. I only really drive 2 to 3 days a week, if that, and generally not very far. And I'm outside of YouTube, I'm a property investor, and this house share that I bought in 2006 has paid for the lease payments on every single car I've driven since then. However, I'm in my 50s now, so I do have some other financial goals around retirement. And looking at that rear-wheel drive Tesla Model 3, the PCP payments on that are exactly or almost half what they are on my Model Y Performance. Ultimately, for now, I cancelled my Tesla Model 3 order, which cost me around £280. It cost me £80 to take my private number plate off my car and then put it back on again. And then I paid a deposit to Tesla of £200 for the new Model 3, and they refused to give it back to me. And I kind of understand, we were so far into the buying process. I was due to pick it up in about 4 days' time. We were that close to the end. It's also shown me that I still think Tesla make the best EVs, and certainly, hands down, have the best charging network. And I would be very reluctant to put that behind me if I were thinking about switching brands. But what I have seen, especially with the Polestar 2, is that other companies who historically perhaps made better cars than Tesla, but worse EVs or average EVs, are now kind of closing that gap. So they're still making great cars, but their EV element is actually getting better. At over 5 years now driving Teslas and over 50,000 miles behind the wheel of a Tesla, I'm still very much in love with the brand. I think the cars are great. I really like what Tesla do as a company, and I've got no plans to change. As I've mentioned, I'll put a link in the description which will give you £1,000, dollars or euros off your next Tesla. And if you've enjoyed this video, then you will certainly enjoy this video here. Until next time, see you soon.